Tansin etute maknina tiar wheatley nisigasun opasqueak uche. To wow, welcome to APTN National News. The draft resolution list for the upcoming Assembly of First Nations gathering in Winnipeg shows there are 50 issues they are hoping to debate. Number 4 on that list comes from right here in Manitoba, calling for federal intervention and a Canada-wide state of emergency on First Nations to deal with the fentanyl, opioid, and substance abuse crisis. Many First Nation citizens say this is long overdue. With more, here's Kyler Minshall.
Somebody took my baby away from me.
These Apasqueak Cree Nation citizens rallied together to confront those causing harm. Ken Henderson is leading the charge.
And yes, we did receive some backlash from people caught in the gangs, but that's us as a community facing each other, facing our own struggles.
This came just 2 days after Adam Buck was shot and killed inside a home in Apasqueak on August 24th. RCMP Major Crimes have since arrested and charged 27-year-old Wyatt Campbell of Musagayagun Cree Nation with second-degree murder. He was remanded into custody until his court appearance. A review of police reports shows so far in 2025, Apasqueak has had nearly a dozen violent crimes involving incidents with machete attacks, firearms, and drug-related matters.
There's too much drugs and too much violence in our communities, and it's affecting the quality of life for everyone. The children, the elders, the men and the women, and families and vulnerable women are being targeted by these gangs.
Now leaders are pressing the issue at the AFN Assembly on September 3rd, saying the escalation in violence is Canada-wide. Resolution 4 calls for a First Nation-wide state of emergency to combat the drugs, alcohol, and bootlegging crisis. Chief Lisa Young of Bloodvein First Nation seconded the resolution.
It's very prevalent to see, and many of our nations are working diligently in providing safety and security of our members. In May, we put in a check stop.
She says in her community alone, nearly 30 people died last year as a result of this crisis.
There are too many of us that fall into that realm of addiction. And when I say that, I don't shy away from my own atrocities that I dealt with.
Miranda Garson of Tatasquiac is also speaking out.
It's been going on for years. It's just, if I have to be the voice, then that's why I'm here. Because I got young children too, and I fear for them every day when they step out the door.
Garson's nephew was flown to Winnipeg after this incident outside the Tatasquiac Band Hall on August 19th.
He has, 13 staples, and he had swelling on his brain.
On August 20th, leadership issued a letter saying a curfew is now in place. They're also hiring additional security, and the RCMP will now be on the ground. RCMP would not confirm they are in Tatasquiac around the clock, but say Thompson RCMP assisted with the incident involving Garson's nephew. As for the AFN resolution, it is expected to pass. Once that happens, the AFN will apply pressure to both the feds and provinces because they say up until now, tackling crime in First Nations has been fragmented, underfunded, and reactive. Kyler Minshall, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Organizations working with homeless people in Winnipeg say there is a need for urgent action to address what they call the combined epidemics of homelessness and toxic drug deaths. The call to action follows the release of a street census by End Homelessness Winnipeg. 60 communities across Canada took part in point-in-time counts through funding from Housing, Infrastructure, and Communities Canada. In Winnipeg, an estimated 2,469 people are experiencing homelessness. However, some believe the figure may be closer to 4,000. Julia Ross has more.
The 2024 Winnipeg Street Census, or Point-in-Time Count Reports release, provides a look into the patterns of homelessness.
The Street Census we released this afternoon is not just data. It is a mirror of our community, reflecting thousands of people living without the security of a home.
More than 1,500 surveys were held across the city between November 6th and 12th, 2024, by volunteers, staff, and organizations that serve the unhoused. The point-in-time count in Winnipeg focused on the night of November 5th, 2024, and showed an estimated 2,469 people experiencing homelessness on that day.
Working together, we have collected the data to show the challenges that are faced when you do not have a place to call home in Winnipeg. And now it's up to the leaders to consider this report and find the commitment to take real action.
Based on the report, nearly 80% of Winnipeg's homeless population is Indigenous.
Our teachings remind us that we are all related. To honor that truth is to ensure that no one is left outside. Let us walk this path together, guided by respect, responsibility, compassion, until every relative in our city has a place to call home.
Almost 1 in 2 respondents were placed into the child welfare system as a child or teen. End Homelessness Winnipeg reached out to CFS for data to help with the pit count, but they did not respond.
CFS, we asked for data, we did our best. We were not given, they did not provide us the data.
The data from the survey was combined with data from the number of people identified through the Homeless Individuals and Families Information System, hospital reports, responses from transitional housing programs, federal and provincial corrections, and child and family services.
With the release of this report, we have the choice whether we want to act and create positive change, or to delay and to allow the challenges we're facing to deepen.
The street census aims to provide data updating the rates of homelessness and highlighting systemic inequality, provide recommendations to the city, and start a dialogue and change.
We said in 2 terms we were going to end chronic homelessness, and we were working collaboratively with all of these different organizations. So of course, the pit count is a part of that, and the numbers that they've produced are in line with our numbers, and we're going to continue to work with them.
Presenter Ainsley Hines mentioned the data offered through the street census should be used as an insight into the rising rates of homelessness, rather than an exact number of people experiencing homelessness. A joint statement from 5 organizations that work daily with the homeless say they believe the actual number is closer to 4,000 people. They say government can no longer continue to ignore the systemic and policy failures that continue to fuel the combined epidemics of homelessness and toxic drug deaths. Julia Ross, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A member of a Northern Ontario First Nation is taking her chief and council to court over the disbursement of an historic treaty settlement. Renee Below is asking the federal court to direct the leadership of Garden River First Nation east of Sault Ste. Marie to, quote, create a fulsome, fair, transparent, and meaningful process, unquote, pertaining to the distribution of settlement money. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
Renee Bello has been holding protests off and on outside the Garden River Band office, concerned about the handling of the per capita distribution of money received through the Robinson-Huron Treaty Annuity Settlement with the governments of Canada and Ontario. First Nations within Robinson-Huron Treaty territory received $10 billion in the settlement, with Garden River receiving around $610 million. Garden River leadership set aside $200 million in a legacy trust, with the remaining funds distributed directly to band members. Since Bello's initial protests, she's been looking for allies outside of the First Nation to help her cause.
Reading a couple of the stories, I did a shout out on a media site, a social media site, and Rob actually responded to me.
Bello was referencing Rob Louie, the president and founder of the Band Members Alliance and Advocacy Association of Canada, or BMAC, a nonprofit whose mandate is to advocate and assist band members seeking accountability and transparency in First Nation governance. He said he's heard from many Robinson-Huron citizens with concerns about transparency. He believes there's a problem.
This is one of the largest cases that I've seen, because we're talking about a $10 billion comprehensive settlement that has been dispersed amongst a number of First Nations here. So the members have been, for the most part, shut out of the process. And they've been what I would call on a need-to-know basis by the chief and council, which really flies in the face of what meaningful consultation with membership is all about. So they should have been informed right from the start in a very open and transparent way, which from what I see, has been lacking all the way through until now.
Louis says BMAC has gone to bat for a number of First Nation citizens fighting for financial transparency, and he anticipates more calls from band members and other communities in the coming months.
BMAC has been involved in financial transparency cases for the last 6 years. It's one thing to have Chief and Council not comply with the First Nation Financial Transparency Act. It's another thing for a Chief and Council to ignore their fiduciary duty over their First Nation membership.
Meantime, Bello says her court battle is to ensure Garden River band members get what she and others feel is owed to them.
I definitely want to see the 200 million in Garden River First Nations people's hands and pockets.
APTN reached out to Garden River First Nation leadership for comment, but did not receive a response before deadline. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Time for a quick break. We take you north of 60 when we come back. Cheskwa. Pitigua, welcome back. Fisheries officials from across the country gathered in Nunavut on Friday for the Canadian Council of Fisheries and Aquaculture Ministers. The meeting discussed a number of issues, including economic opportunities for the fish and seafood sector, sustainable management, and invasive aquatic species. It was co-chaired by Nunavut Minister of Community Services David Akiaguk and Federal Minister of Fisheries Joanne Thompson. At a press conference in Iqaluit, Akiaguk told reporters his government voiced its support for a proposed deep-sea port at Coykittajuk and port and road at Rays Bay.
From Nunavut's perspective, we do have fishing industry that Nunavut owns, but none of them land in Nunavut. And this will allow for Nunavut to land their own fish and be able to ship to the markets of their choice. And that's, to me, I see this as a nation building where we'd have ports and allow for our Arctic sovereignty to be what the geopolitical world is at right now.
After 3 days of networking, socializing, and learning, Entrepreneur North's inaugural Empowering Innovation Spirit Conference wrapped up on Thursday. Video journalist Bruce De La Cruz was there for the last day of panels and closing ceremonies to get final thoughts from those involved and those who attended.
Energy was high on the final day of the Empowering Innovation Spirit Conference in Yellowknife, with a full schedule of relevant workshops and panels for the Northern entrepreneurs. With the topic of AI a buzzing trend in today's entrepreneurial environment, the Decolonizing the Future panel discussed Indigenous futurisms, AI, and data sovereignty. Dana Tija Tram, director of NADLI, a tech nonprofit dedicated to data sovereignty, explained to APTN News the proactive stance that Indigenous peoples should take on AI in regards to preserving their culture.
Artificial intelligence is an emerging intelligence. It didn't ask to be created. It didn't ask to be made unsustainable. Think of it like a child. And if this little white baby, if we look at its parents in Silicon Valley, they have nothing good planned for this little child. As Indigenous peoples, we need to adopt this little white baby and raise it in our ways so that it can learn how to empower communities, how to empower the land. If AI does not contribute to that, then it is not worth a future worth subscribing to.
Nila Oma is from Sweden and one of the many international guests at the conference. He belongs to the Sami people, an indigenous group originating from northeastern Europe, and he is a master traditional Sami craftsman. He spoke on the Strengthening Cultural Ties and Arctic Trade Relations panel, discussing the need for northern indigenous peoples around the world to work together towards the future.
A good way of doing that is by having good relationships, doing trade, sharing knowledge, and being a strong, united front against colonization. Indigenous Arctic people have a lot in common, even though there's a whole sea separating us. But when I get here, I've noticed there's so many similarities between us that's in how we've been treated, how we are being treated, our ways of life. We are basically brothers and sisters already.
Tammy Snook, former program manager for Entrepreneur, who now runs her own consulting business, and Katie Johnson, Entrepreneur's director of programming, were instrumental in the conference's planning stage and overall success.
It's been probably close to 4 months of, with our team, just planning and creating the space for entrepreneurs from across the North. And what we saw today and the last couple of days has just been like magic.
Tammy reiterates the importance for Northern entrepreneurs to meet together at events like this.
From my perspective, as someone who has been working with entrepreneurs for her entire professional career, and specifically in the North with Indigenous entrepreneurs, there's enough siloing and loneliness in the North and in entrepreneurship itself, because most of us are solo entrepreneurs, and this gives everyone an opportunity to realize that they're not alone, that the supports are available there for you, and that the North has a lot more opportunity to present itself than what perceives the eye.
The pair left us with the lessons that they hope people were able to take away from the conference.
Empowerment, inspiration, everything about the theme of the conference was about empowering and innovation in the spirit. And so we set the intention when we first started planning this conference that we wanted to do all three things. And we are walking away just feeling good that we set the goal and we were able to empower Indigenous entrepreneurs to build sustainable businesses and across the north. So we're really pleased with how it all turned out.
I think we've made our mark. I think entrepreneur, this is our pin.
Yeah, the stamp.
The stamp.
Bruce de la Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Get an Ask 'em It in Bruce. And we have a story about those furry little creatures that are all the hype right now. Take a guess which toy that is. The answer when we come back. So wow, welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. CT tells us that after several years of planting, a poppy has finally grown and bloomed. CT is out in Fort Nelson, British Columbia, and we hope more success for you and your poppies next year. Now, to everybody else, there's lots going on this weekend. Take some photos and send them our way. Share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured next week as our photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting in the east, St. John's 15, Charlottetown 18. Kuujjuaq 14, Nain 17. Saguenay 16, Val-d'Or 20. North Bay 20, Toronto 21. Big Trout Lake 16, Kapuskasing 23. Churchill 22, God's Lake 27. Barons River 26, Brandon 34. North Battleford 30, Regina 32. Uranium City 27, Buffalo Narrows 31. High Level 31, Port McMurray 33. Edmonton 33, Calgary 30 degrees. Bella Coola 20, Kamloops 31. Dease Lake 20, Smithers 24. Rock River 9, Dawson 14. Wrigley 15, Fort Simpson 20. Tuktoyaktuk 4, Colville Lake 9 degrees. Cambridge Bay 6, Chesterfield 9. Arctic Bay -2, Iqaluit 5 degrees. First it was Cabbage Patch Dolls, then Trolls and Beanie Babies, and now there's a new toy collectible that's captured the attention of children and adults alike. As Sarah Connors tells us, a Tlingit artist in Alaska is indigenizing the popular toy one thread at a time.
They're the toy craze of the summer, and it seems like they're only getting more popular. They're called Labubu's, and these monster plushies seem to be everywhere lately. Now, they're even sporting Tlingit regalia.
Just so sweet!
Artist and Chilkat weaver Lily Hope says the hype surrounding the beloved toys inspired her to create her own Labubu regalia. The outfits are made from repurposed dance cuffs and are woven in classic Chilkat colors.
And I said, well, here's an opportunity to share Raven's Tail and Chilkat weaving across the world in a very different way, very accessible, fun, playful way.
The Juneau, Alaska-based artist brought her Labubu regalia creations to the Santa Fe Indian Market in New Mexico earlier this month, where she says they blew up. Since then, Hope says she's received many requests for Labubu regalia, including from Los Angeles film producer and art collector Michael Sherman.
That's affirmation that this is speaking to exactly what I want to do, is reach out to people and say, this is Raven's Tail and Chilkat weaving from the northwest coast of Alaska and Canada.
I think it's fun for visitors and for students and for guests here to learn about weaving traditions that have been in place for thousands of years, but are still making fun and meaningful things for today.
The Labubus also made an impression on the curator of Northwest Native Art at the Burke Museum in Seattle, Washington. The museum purchased a regalia Labubu from Hope, as well as this one made by Hope's Aunt Deanna, to add to its collection.
I think it's fun for visitors and for students and for guests here to learn about weaving traditions that have been in place for thousands of years, but are still making fun and meaningful things for today.
Building on the Labubu excitement, Hope's now selling regalia kits and will be holding classes for those interested in learning how to make Labubu regalia of their own.
How much joy is this going to bring people for the next 40, 50 years to be like, oh, remember in 2025 this happened?
From toy shelves to museum collections, these wacky monsters are helping promote Tlingit culture now and into the future. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
My niece has been bugging me about those. Does that child like spending my adult money? I might just have to get her some. And it's already the last Friday of August, and Fridays mean that we have a new episode of Nouvelles Nationales tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right after the national news. Host Kim Sullivan joins us now. Tansik, Kim.
Hey, we have a jammed pack show this Friday. 2 stories out of Ganawage, 2 out of Nunavik, and I must say, all positive and happy stories to end this week. However, what's not so happy is proposed Bill 97. That, as you know, hot topic in Quebec. The regional chief of the Association of First Nations Quebec-Labrador actually sits down with us. You don't want to miss it. It's happening at 6:30 Eastern tonight. On se voit ce soir.
Tapwegi Che Kim. And just like that, summer flew on by. What I'm about to do out of the seat for the long weekend. I'm TR Wheatley. It's been a pleasure being here with you this evening. From all of us at APTN National News, Egase, Gitam, Kawapa Mitinano.